Today we took a trip out to Williams Tree Farm and we're visiting with Don Williams. Don's been in the evergreen growing business for many, many years. Thanks for having us out today, Don.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Yes, we're here in middle of October, but we're already dressed like it's winter because it's a very cold day. Don's going to teach us about how evergreens grow. We're going to look at the different types of evergreens and learn about the different things that they have to do all year round. It's not just a type of farming that happens in November and December.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
It's a year-round business.
Yeah.
So, Don, you selected various samples of different kinds of evergreens for us to take a look at today.
Right.
So you don't just grow one kind. How many different kinds are we looking at?
Well, we basically have 3 different varieties. We have pines, spruces, and firs. And out of those, we have 3 different kinds of pines and a couple different kinds of spruces and about 3 different kinds of fir. So,
okay. Well, explain to us the difference, because I think kids at home might think that they're all just green trees.
That's right. Each variety has a different aroma. So pine will have one, spruce will be different, and so will fir. So they all have a different aroma. Now, I think the most aromatic tree is the fir that has the best smell. A lot of people like the spruce. And the old traditional tree has been the pines. Easier to grow, faster to grow, but those are kind of slipping away and we're going heavily into the firs now.
Okay. Now, I believe the needles also have different shapes and sizes.
That's right.
Can you take a look at a couple of these?
These are our fir that we have. This is a long needled fir here. It's a concolor fir. We don't have a lot of these. It has actually a citrus smell to it. But that's
Are those needles flat too?
Yeah, they're pretty flat. These are single needles, no pairs, no groups.
Okay.
So they grow. Then, of course, the favorite nowadays is these Fraser firs, and they grow really nice. Beautiful trees, long-lasting in the house. Now, there are. It's a cousin to all the firs, of course, and probably one of your best bets here as far as a long-lasting fir tree in the house. So those are the 2 types of firs, and we'll do the spruce. All I have here is a blue spruce sample, and it's got really sharp needles. It has a very pungent smell. It's got that blue cast to it. Some of them are green seed source. They can come back blue or they can come back green. So
yeah, those are the ones that kind of hurt if we stick them with our hand.
Then the pines, we've grown Scotch pine for years, and that's it's a pretty nice tree. There are groups of 2 in those needles, and it's really some of the different varieties are shorter and some are longer needled. Some grow slower, some grow faster. But white pine, a little bit different. It's got needles groups of 5, so it's a thicker tree. But when they get wet, they kind of are like a wet dog. They kind of stick together, the needles do, because they're very fine, and the branches are pretty bendable.
Yeah.
So they don't hold heavy ornaments. But if you have light ornaments or just use tinsel and lights, these are wonderful trees.
And they're very soft to the touch, right?
Yeah, very soft. A lot of people with allergies like these and some of the firs. The needles fall off every year. These are 1-year-old needles, and the 2-year-old needles are gone. And when those needles fall off, they sometimes get stuck in a tree. And that's why we shake them at Christmas time. So
to shake all the dead stuff off.
Yep, shake it all out. So
very interesting.
Yep, those are the types of trees that we have here at the farm.
Evergreen farmers don't just work during the holiday season when we think about evergreen trees, but they have to work all year round.
That's right.
And it sounds like in the summertime you're pretty busy. Tell us what you're doing in the summer.
In the summer, we have to shape every tree. They grow, and we have to reshape them into the style and type of tree that we want. So they have to be sheared. And we use these big knives that we go out and walk around every tree and cut off the wild growth that's in the way, and do that. We use protective gear for our legs. You can see the little nicks, the little knife cuts on there.
Yes.
They hit those things. So,
it's kind of like giving the trees a haircut.
It is exactly right. They'll grow and get real shaggy. Now the trees only grow starting in May and June, and they're actively growing into August, and then they start to go dormant again and get theoretically ready for Christmas. They grow roots in September.
Oh, okay.
So they're still kind of growing, but everything on top of the ground is pretty much dormant.
Okay. So we took a trip out to one of the forested areas here where trees are growing all the way around us. And Don wants to explain to us about this kind of funny looking tree and why they trim their trees and what can happen if they don't get trimmed.
Right. Well, this is a white pine, and it's a really fast grower. And it's interesting on this particular tree. This last year, 2 years ago actually, this is a year of growth here. So it can grow 2 to 3 feet a year, a white pine can. And if you don't control that thing to a foot a year with shearing, then it gets real spacious like this. Now, one of the things we can point out on this tree here is you can actually count how old this tree is by looking at the distances between here and there, because this is 1 year of growth. And that top part up there would be another year of growth. And this one would be another one down here. So I'm not gonna bend over, but I'm thinking there down low where it started, it was a 2-year-old plant when it got planted. It struggled for 2 years to get out of the weeds. Then 3, 4, 5, that's 6 years right there.
Wow, 6 years to get that tall.
Yep. So the white pine is the fastest of the pines.
Wow. So how long does it take the other varieties to grow?
Well, the slowest varieties are unfortunately the short needle trees, the spruces and the firs, but we generally figure anywhere from 8 to 12 years to get a 7 to 8 foot tree.
Wow, so this isn't a fast process.
No, it's not, but we do harvest every year and we do plant every year, so it's a rotation. So it's a crop.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look and see how those trees get planted.
Okay.
So Don, you said that you plant new trees every year. Can you tell us a little bit about that process?
Right. Well, we plant 2 and 4-year-old seedlings, 2-year-old pines and 4-year-old firs. We get them from a nursery, and they get their trees, or they get their seeds at the nurseries from pine cones. And pine cones grow on most every trees. And as they are growing on the tree, they'll dry out during the summer, and then they'll open up, and the seeds will fall out to the ground. So the guys that collect the seeds have to crawl in these trees and collect the pine cones before the seeds fall out.
So at the nursery then, they're going to plant the seeds.
Right, they sow it, they do it several different ways. A lot will start them in a greenhouse now into an actual little fiber pot, and then they'll plant those out in the field for a year, and sometimes 2 years, depending on the size we want. Now, this particular plant here was, this is a Canaan fir, and it was a 2-year-old. So down here, I'm gonna kneel. Down here you can see that this tree was right there, that height, when it started.
Okay.
And then it grew, last year it grew that much, the first year. And then this year it grew that much.
So what is that, about 6 or 8 inches a year?
This is, yeah. Now next year the roots are getting established this fall, and even more, and it'll grow up like that.
Okay, so about another foot next year.
Yeah, and every time these buds, it makes another whorl there, like this.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So when we shear that on a fir tree, these buds on the sides get big.
And that's what makes it bush out more.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, very interesting. And about how many of these seedlings do you plant every year?
We do about 10, 15 acres, so we're looking at anywhere from 15 to 20,000 trees.
Wow, every single year?
Yep.
And how many do you think are harvested every year?
Well, we probably do around 10,000 trees.
Okay.
We do have a lot of mortality. A lot of them don't make it. Some of them we use for greens, cut them up and branches. Some of them never turn out very well, and some of them turn out really nice.
Out here in a field like this, do they also get bothered by deer and other animals?
Deer love Fraser fir, and rabbits will bite a tree like that right off. We even had a hailstorm one year, just obliviate trees. They were just ready for harvest, and it just took the whole thing.
Yes.
And they never did recover.
All right, well, let's go take a look at some little bit bigger trees. So we moved over to a field of bigger trees. How old are these trees, you think, Don?
Well, these have been in the field for 5 years now. So they're doing pretty well. They're almost 5 foot, so they've caught up really well and done really well. You can see, compared to the last tree we looked at, I believe, you can see right here where that one would have been over there. And then we got 1, 2, and 3 more years. Now, the last 2 years, this has been sheared. So it's been sheared here, and the branches are different than here, but they thickened up, and then it's sheared here, and these branches will pop out and dents the tree up. So these are coming along nice. These are Fraser fir. They really like fertile ground. They don't like it wet. This is really sandy, and they're growing just the right rate of speed here, so they're going to be beautiful trees.
Yes, you mentioned earlier that this area has very sandy soil. Can you explain for the students why that's good for trees?
Sandy soil is preferred for growing Christmas trees. It's really not good for anything else. Trees are very adaptable. They do well in in poorer ground.
Sandy soil generally drains faster.
Yes,
correct?
These plants love dry feet. They don't like it wet at all, and most of the pines and the spruces and the firs really don't like it that wet. So it is a problem to have wet soil.
Let's move on and take a look at even the biggest trees you have. So we took a little walk out to some of the bigger trees, and Don, you're telling me that about this size tree is what most customers are looking for. About how big is this tree?
This is a good 8-footer. A little bit lighter tree. It's not real dense. It's kind of shaded here, so it doesn't get a lot of sunlight, so it's a little thin on this side.
Do you have safety tips about trying to keep your tree nice and safe inside a house?
Yeah, tree will do well if you keep it in a cool room, if you don't have it in the house too long. If it does get dry, just leave the lights off, please, because the lights can be the ignition source for that. A tree won't self-combust.
Right.
It's got to have something to light it.
Right. It's the electrical lights that would cause the problem.
Right. Yes.
Right.
But you want to be safe, and you don't want to have a dry tree in your house. So the best way to do that is to make that fresh cut on the bottom, keep the water level up, keep it in a cool room if you can, away from heat sources.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Don, for your time today. We learned so much about evergreen trees, and this cold day certainly puts us in the mood. You even told me you're starting to watch Christmas movies to get in the spirit. When you go to get your Christmas tree this fall, remember all the evergreen farmers that worked so hard for many, many years to grow that beautiful tree for you. See you next time. Bye-bye.